It will be a few minutes to get started. We'll just give it one more minute for people who are still coming in right now. Okay, so it is 11:05 right now. So I'd like to thank you everyone for coming to our event with Graduate School Defining Your Interests. We are presented here at SSARC, and we are the graduate school and research team. And we are grateful and we thank our special guest for Akil Fletcher, who is a PhD candidate in anthropology here at UCI, for coming today, who is here and welcoming questions or any concerns that students have about graduate school. I am Julia, and I'm one of the peer consultants here at SSARC. And I'm also here with my other peer consultants, Esther and Naya. If you introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Esther, and I'm also a peer consultant at SSARC. I'm a junior double major in political science and international studies.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naya. I'm a 5th year here at UCI, and I also major in anthropology. Woohoo!
Yay, anthropology majors. All right, so we're going to get started. So today, we're just going to introduce you to our team here at SSARC. We have Esther and Naya here who are presenting. Alin is also one of our other peer consultants who are also on the graduate school and research team. And I'm also here in the graduate school research team as well. And then we also have Akil here, our PhD candidate. So this consists of our group for today. Naya, I think you have this slide.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about defining your interests, and we'll be going over a couple of different steps as you choose to navigate what kind of careers and potential grad programs might best suit you and your goals. We have kind of 6 different steps here, but we'll be walking through each of them throughout the presentation.
Okay, I'm going to cover the first step. To decide your further education, I highly recommend you to ask yourself the following questions. Do I enjoy studying my current major? Do I prefer to study my undergrad major in grad school? Do I plan to study a different major for grad school? Well, I enjoy studying this major for like 2 to 7 years. And can I see myself being a professional in this field? The answers to these questions will be exceedingly helpful for you to define your interest. I would like to take myself as an example. I again, I'm a political science major, and I would like to continue studying political science for my grad school. So yeah, and I would like to study that for about 2 years. From my answer, I would go ahead and search for different programs that match my answer. Yeah. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, of course. You would like to know your career goals before you make your final decisions. Yeah, again, you should know your interest, skill, and strengths for now. And once you know them, you would like at least get to know like what you want to do for your grad school, and to like, you know, to make sure that you will be good at your future career and like, you know, grasp or like the majors you are going to study for grad school. You should always ask your professors, supervisors, and or family members. I believe that they will give you great suggestions to your future path. After that, I recommend you to write a career bucket list. Basically, it's like a data collecting step. I recommend you to make a spreadsheet and put all the your interests and your goals on there. And I would like to mention a great website for you to look into your goals and your you know, like decided like career path in the future. Let me share my screen. Sec. Hold on, sorry. Yeah, this website is called Focus 2. This website is made by the UCI Division of Career Pathways, and I will of course I will send the link to the chat so you guys can all save this website. Once you open this website, you can scroll down and get started with Focus 2 Career. And you have to log in to this website with your UCI ID. Once you log in, they will show you this page. And And I highly suggest you to click on this explore any occupation. And yeah, for example, I would like one of the careers on my bucket list is to be a foreign service officer. So I would put foreign service officer here. Oops. Yes. And click on here. So the whole website will show you what the expectations for being a foreign service officer, how much you will what skills that a foreign service officer requires, and what you what expected work conditions are, and of course they will show you how much you will get for becoming a foreign service officer. So yeah, I highly suggest you to look your careers, search your careers on this website. And yeah, I think by doing that, you will that website will help you to define your interest. Yeah, and let me put this link to the chat.
Thank you, Esther, for showing such a great resource for students to define their career goals a lot more, to kind of see what careers they are interested in pursuing and what steps they do need to take in order to achieve that. So as far as the presentation, we're going to move on to the next slide. And for types of degrees, there are a very there's a majority of master's and doctorate degrees offered, but here are some of the most common ones that we would like to have students know. So for master's degrees, it's usually 1 to 3 years of study beyond the bachelor's degree. I would like to say it depends on the program as well, because there's some programs that only take 1 year, but also depends if your pace is going to be full-time or part-time. So if it was full-time, most likely either 2 years or even 1 year. But if it was part-time, depending on the program, it could be longer than 3 or 4. This depends on your pace. So don't ever worry about finishing at a certain time, because as you know now in undergraduate, there is no time limit to whenever you graduate. So make sure to know that your pace is your own self-reflection of how much you can handle in graduate school. So for as far as the different degrees in masters, there is Masters of Science and Master of Arts. For differences between those two is that Masters of Science is morely focused on scientific representation and knowledge and theoretical thinking, whereas compared to Master of Arts, it's more like liberal arts and humanities. And the next one would be Masters of Public Health. That's also for students who are majoring in public health policy and undergraduate, and they're looking to pursue a master's in public health. For Masters of Business Administration, those are for students who are majoring in business majors and undergraduate, or if they're interested in doing an MBA, and it was different from their undergraduate, they do have requirements for students to gain the field experience and the work experience for at least 1 or 2 years at a business company or organization to be able to apply for the MBA. So there are some qualifications for that, as far as I know, for the business administration degree. For the Masters of Public Administration, those are for the students who are interested in going to public policy, going to Congress or council, and so that's a great degree to kind of put your foot into the door with those occupations, as well as Masters of Fine Arts. Those are for the students who are majoring in fine arts or graphic design or anything that is art related or in an art school, they could be potentially interested in pursuing a master's of fine arts, which is very common. And then masters of social work, these are for people who are looking to become social workers. You could either get a master's or you can strive for a PhD, but most likely a master's will get you into that foot in your door for being a social worker. And then masters of education, that could range from being an educational counselor or being a professor at community college, depends on what your goal is. And that's why we want to emphasize what your career goal is before choosing the type of degree that you're willing to pursue, because ultimately it ties back to your goal of achieving that career and having the skills and the knowledge to be applicable to that career. And as far as doctor degrees, and I will be able to discuss this.
Yes, hello. So with PhD programs, you're typically looking at a 5, 7 to 9+ year commitment. But because of this, you're generally building bodies of knowledge, which goes beyond the level of master's degrees. And to kind of compare with master's degrees, you get trained to do something over creating knowledge itself with a PhD. So here we have a list of PhD programs, which includes Doctor of Philosophy. They're all doctorate degrees, not just PhDs, but there's the Doctor of Philosophy, which again, you're creating bodies of knowledge, typically within your respective fields. So again, Akil, he's creating wonderful knowledge in the realm of anthropology, based on gaming and stuff too. So that's really interesting. But further, there's a doctorate in education, which goes beyond the master's of education, and it's probably more for people who are interested in becoming like administrators or faculty of universities. That's beyond even just professing at this level. And in general, with these types of degrees, those are the careers that you'll likely be leaning more into, just because of the nature of like what you get trained to do, which is typically more research and development of knowledge. But of course, you also have doctorates in medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and of course for law, for lawyers and judges, who become our people of support, who of course, take care of us. We go to the doctor and go to the dentist and so on. These are, they require a lot of education, a lot of school. So if those are professions that you're seeking to get into, those are areas that you would also be pursuing a doctorate degree in. So yeah.
So after you choose the type of degree and you know that you're interested in pursuing graduate school, one of the other things that's important to consider is what would you like your graduate school experience to be? So it really depends on what you would want out of the college program. So for undergraduate, obviously, there's some people that prefer to be online or in person, or they prefer to stay at home or live on campus. There's all these different variety of factors that we have to consider to pursuing graduate school, because it is an investment of your time and also financially as well. So you want to make sure your experience is what you're getting, what you're paying for. So one of the things that we like to emphasize is the cohort. So if you don't know what cohort means, it means when students who are grouped together in their program to progress through the academic curriculum simultaneously. So what this means is that when you're in an incoming class for maybe, for example, the 2023 fall semester, you will be paired in a group of maybe at most 10 to 12 people. And throughout your time in graduate school, you'll be moving from each semester, taking the same class, doing the same projects and homework assignments with that group that you originally started with, which is your cohort. So if that's something where you are interested in doing and you're more of a person that likes to work on a team and you don't really enjoy too much change in the atmosphere of classrooms, then this is something that you can consider. to do because you have that stability of friendships, the stability of people that you already know and what you're expecting. So that's also a great way to consider whether you like to go in a cohort or if you like to just go straight into a program by yourself and see what brings differences to me and what I can expect. So besides the cohort, there's also another option for graduate school, which is online or in person. So there are graduate school programs that are fully online for you to receive the degree. It depends on the program and of course the school as well. So that is something to consider if you're looking to work a full-time job and you know that you can't go in person on those weekdays or maybe weekends, and you know that the best way for you to get your graduate degree is online, then that's completely something that you can look into because there are various degrees that are offered from different schools where you can do it fully online. Or if you're a person that is thinking, oh, I just might work a part-time job, or I'm thinking I won't work at all, then I would love to have an in-person experience, and that's totally okay as well. Because in person, you can be able to interact with the students that are around you who are also in the same program or maybe different programs on campus. And if you're willing to seek out those resources that are available to you. What's also great about some programs is that they could be hybrid as well. So you have a choice of either doing online or in person, depending on the program. And then also another thing to consider for time commitment as well as some credentials. So for example, like a PPS, which is mainly for students who are interested in doing counseling from kindergarten to 12th grade. For example, they would have a standing in a master's program of educational counseling, but then that would take them 2 years to finish. If they have the option of doing the PPS, that could potentially add more time, at least 18 months, to complete that PPS along with their graduate school program. So there is programs that offer that choice of either just doing the graduate school program or offering that credential on the side that you can complete, but it does require more time. So that's something you can kind of consider to see if I'm willing to just do the degree, or do I want to hit 2 birds with 1 stone and get the degree and a credential at the same time? Because then you can have the choice of either doing kindergarten to 12th grade, but also doing counseling and higher education as well. So it's really up to you and your preferences on whether you're willing to spend more time in graduate school, or you're thinking, I just want to spend more time to get the credentials and then have that backup for myself. That also goes the same, for example, as well with teaching credentials. That could go into some more of a time commitment if you're looking to get either just a credential by itself, which may not be as long as a graduate school program, but it does require the time for you to finish it. So these are the 3 things that you kind of want to consider when you're wanting to go into graduate school, because your experiences are going to be a pivot moment where you're going to be applying for the job that you want to do, the career that you want to do, and you're explaining your experience of what you gained from your experience at the college that you're in and the program that you're in and with the people you're with. And then as far as considering the experience in college as well, you also want to seek out some experiences in the field. I think one of the best ways to find out if you're interested in a specific program or if you're interested in even going to graduate school is just going out in the field and deciding or getting that professional development that you need. So one of the things that I would advise is that some field study class you can take here at UCI. If your major doesn't require it, you can still take some independent study classes or internship class. One of the internship classes that we offer at SSARC is the Social Science 197, where you can receive academic credit for an on-campus or off-campus internship. So that's one of the ways where you can hit, again, 2 birds with 1 stone, is being able to receive that internship, but also the academic credit at the same time. So a field study class will kind of force you to go out in the field, find a position that relies or connects to your field, and be able to kind of see, okay, do I see myself in this job occupation that I may potentially pursue in the major that I'm studying, or do I want to go do something else? So that's another thing too, is internships, is whether it's unpaid or paid, that's also another way for you to find more experiences with professionals that you think that would be able to facilitate your resume or then your experience that you can talk about when applying to graduate school. And then volunteering for organizations and networking with those professionals is also a great way to seeing if your willingness to be able to put yourself out there and also talk with these professionals, ask about their experience. Have they taken these certain steps that are needed to go to the position that they're in? Maybe that's a great way for you to ask them like, hey, did you have to go to graduate school to be able to be where you're at? Or do you think that I should gain some experience after undergrad and then apply to graduate school, or maybe consider a gap year? Or do you enjoy being in the field that you are in? Because I'm interested in that. So that's also something you can do, is that talk to these people that are in the field and seeing, can you see yourself in that position that they are in? And then that gives you a leeway of kind of imagining yourself like, maybe I can see myself, maybe I can't. And then also another way is participating in clubs. So one of the ways that is great on campus at UCI is that there are like hundreds and hundreds of clubs for you to explore and see what your interests are aligned with that. And some of these clubs do apply to some internships that are available in the clubs or mentorship programs for students in the club. So that's also a great way to connect with either graduate students or other students who are in the same major as you and are also thinking about the same experiences as you or occupation. And then another thing I would suggest is like job shadowing professional. So one of the ways is that you can reach out to a professional that you know is in the field that you're interested in and ask like, hey, is it okay if I can just come with you one day while you're at work and kind of just job shadow and see what the daily duties you are doing, because this is something that I could want to go into. And so that's also a great way to see a real life image and also experience in front of you. And instead of just maybe imagining what it could be like, and you can just put yourself out in the field and make you have more self-awareness and questions about whether you want to pursue that. So instead of like job shadow, we can also do a part-time or full-time job. I think that's also very straightforward with internships, is that you want to find something that could give you also the compensation back, is that you're also figuring it out at the same time. And then you're also getting the money too as well. But then align with the internships in a part-time and full-time job or volunteering. That's all going to expose you to these professionals that are out in this occupation that you're interested in. And I think that is very important, because most of the time is that we can try to imagine what we want to do in life, but then we might not be exactly sure until we put ourselves out there and try to see if it really fits for you. So that's also something I like to emphasize for students, is to seek out that experience in the field and try to see if that really is something they want to do. And if not, that's totally fine. You can move on to something else. You can do something else, because in life, there's always a great way to figure out what you like to do. And if not, you can move on to another passion. I think now you have this slide.
Hi. So as far as resources are concerned, here at the Social Science Academic Resource Center, you're able to make 30-minute consultation appointments with one of us, graduate peer consultants, or any peer consultants here, where we can discuss research opportunities, internships, and just plan out your career and post-grad goals. The Division of Career Pathways offers similar resources and support through their department, especially tools that specifically help you apply to different jobs, prepare for these big interviews, and again, just assess overall what your post-grad plans potentially could be following your time here at UCI. They're kind of underrated because they're also open to all people within the community, not just UCI students. So even as alumni, you can tap into the DCP as a resource, even well beyond your undergraduate career. And further, you can research librarians at the Langston Library and just learn more about researching itself. A lot of these degrees will require extensive amounts of research. So it's probably good to get your hands on that kind of experience with reading different materials and trying to source new information from them, or critique information and develop your own ideas on it. So it's always good to get practice. And we have a big, wonderful library to do so. As far as the Graduate and Postdoctoral Scholar Resource Center, this is for current graduate students. So I'm not really sure if much of their services do apply to us as undergrads, which is why we have things like the Writing Center or even the Source Center to kind of offset the same services, such as writing support and prep for grants and scholarships, so on. And of course, SSARC here, where we do professional development workshops. I think that's more for graduate students, but again, like, even if you become a grad student at UCI, this is a great resource for you to utilize to support you in your educational journey. And the Writing Center, I can't talk about them enough. They're really great resource that can help you just get your thoughts out on a piece of paper. And they support more than just like your class essays and writing workshops. They can support you with scholarships and even your theses or your applications to these programs themselves. And they're just great for helping, at least I've been utilizing them to help me map out things I want to highlight in my story as I'm applying to these programs, and really bullet point my life and potential career goals in the future. But people typically tend to just go to them for like, oh, I need them to review my paper. But if you have no idea where to start, they're also just great at supporting you begin these processes for, again, any application that you might need them for. So yeah.
Yeah, I also like to add with the Graduate and Postdoctoral Scholar Resource Center, they do also serve undergraduates, because mainly they do serve graduate students, but they are open to serving undergraduates who are interested in pursuing graduate school. It's kind of like SSARC, where even though we are primarily serving students in the social sciences, we are open to serving any student from any school or department.
Okay, and again, we have our wonderful panelist here today with us, Akil Fletcher, who's a current PhD student in the Department of Anthropology here at UCI. He's in his final year, woohoo! And wrapping up his dissertation. And yeah, now we'll be able to answer some questions and just hopefully get to know more about Akil and his journey to his expertise, his development of his expertise. So yeah. Does anyone have questions?
Akil, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of talk more about your experience at a PhD to let students know what your experience is like?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's literally there. Akil Fletcher. I'm a PhD candidate in the Anthropology department at the University of California, Irvine. It's trained in me to do that. Yeah, like Naya said, I'm in my last year of my PhD program. It has been a hell of a ride. I'm happy to take any and all questions, but overall, I would say my experience in a PhD program has largely been positive. And there are some specific reasons for that in many cases, but you know, it's a lot of work. It is something to really think about if you are going towards the PhD or any sort of doctoral program route. And it's great for a lot of reasons, not so great for a lot of reasons. And because it's literally happening, you know, as we speak, a lot of those reasons is the fact that, you know, grad students don't make a lot of money. It is definitely it's a 4 to 7, sometimes 10 years of your life that you're going to be giving to a university to better yourself. And you won't be making a lot of money. So if money is what you want, if grad school directly isn't always the best case unless you're doing a master's program, or it's other things to consider. But happy to take questions.
I guess I could start. Could you describe a little bit more about specifically what you're doing in anthropology, Black gaming?
Of course. So there is also a question from Justice Merriman, but I will answer that first and then I'll get, because I think they put it in chat. Yeah, so I mean, my work is on race and gaming, specifically Black expression and identity within gaming spaces. So I conduct digital ethnographies to more or less understand and analyze how Black individuals are making use of digital and cyberspaces, specifically within games. So gaming spaces like Discord, literal games, the ones I tend to work on is like League of Legends and Final Fantasy 14. And these games are wonderful spaces, also a great sort of comparative measure because they both interact and have people interact in very different ways, so it gives me a larger scale to look at. But in comparison with those games and the digital spaces that I'm looking at, so again, Discord, Facebook, Twitter, I more or less see how Black individuals are sort of navigating anti-Blackness in online spaces, and that is what my work and my dissertation is more or less about. Anthropology was the way for me to go, specifically because it allowed me the opportunity to conduct ethnography. There's lots of other social sciences that utilize ethnography, including political science or sociology, psychology. Ethnography is sort of becoming the sort of hot button research method for a lot of individuals who are doing a lot of community focused practice. But it originated in anthropology, and it wasn't the best. It was bad. Anthropology did a lot of horrible things. All social sciences did. The academy did. But taking that, you have individuals like Zora Neale Hurston, other older Black scholars and things like that you may know or may want to look up, that have utilized anthropological methods and turned it into something a lot better. And that's sort of what I do in the anthro space. Hope that answers that. Okay. So should I read this question or does somebody else want to read it?
Yeah, you can go ahead and read it.
Sure. So Justice Merriman asked, what general experiences did you draw on when applying to your program? Personal statement / written application tips. So this one is always a contested sort of question. So I, like many others, pulled from past trauma. The university, it's I've done a lot of work in the past and things like that, but I'm a father of 2 children, was a father of 1. At the time I worked 60 hours while going to, I worked nights as a security guard and then eventually moved on to medical administration to feed the fam, and went to school in the mornings and during the midday. So I had a lot of limited experience in the academic settings. I couldn't join clubs, I couldn't do stuff because I either had to work or go home, and what little extra time I had, I did end up using for an internship and for a research project over at John Jay when I was still in New York, that researched gentrification. So when writing my personal statement, I did make it very personal in that sense of saying hey, I didn't have all these academic experiences because I was working, but I still went out of my way, despite being incredibly sleep deprived, to continue research where I could, and I broke it up into more of a 3-point subject. So sort of personal background for what I did in my academics, what I did that's specific to the program, and then why I'm basically a good fit within that last section there. And it really, a personal statement really should be able to speak to you personally. It shouldn't read like I can read it from anybody else. There does need to be an aspect of it, and there's a lot of things to be discussed about the university, about using trauma or sort of just putting out whatever sob story you have in any case to seem more likable to these cases, especially since diversity is such a drawing factor in a lot of these cases. But it should speak to you, no matter how much you want to protect yourself in that setting. But yeah, I can do more nitty-gritty tips if you want that as well.
Are there any other questions in the chat or should I ask another?
I also have another one too, if you want to go, Anaya.
No, go ahead, Julia.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask Akil, so since you are pursuing your PhD at UCI, what do you think has UCI done to help you succeed your time here and has really supported you? And do you have any advice for students who are interested in pursuing the PhD at UCI and what they can expect when they are still going to be here on campus?
Yeah, so I wasn't here for my undergrad. I did my undergrad in City College of New York in Harlem. But the graduate experience tends to be a lot different from your undergrad experience, right? You're not going to classes as much, and in many cases you're teaching them. So your interaction with any sort of professor or advisor experience is going to be very different. A lot of the PhD experience is self-learning. Once you get past coursework, your research is going to direct what it is you're looking at, and also direct the reading that you're doing, and the other forms of research that you're looking at. You will have, incredibly long bibliographies of whatever it is you need to read for your orals or any other sort of testing that goes on depending on the field that you're in. And then eventually for your defense at the end of your dissertation and PhD graduate career. What I think UCI has done very well is it's one of the better programs to have a family within. There is, childcare, there's other services that's accessible. And, even when having to teach, there is some level of support from the university. Not enough, clearly, because many of us are on strike, but the reality is UCI is still a better or thing program than a lot of other universities who don't have any sort of family aspects in mind. A good example is that when I was applying for grad school, I applied to 4 schools, got accepted to 3 of them being NYU, Notre Dame, and UCI. And a big factor in choosing UCI, other than the individuals that I wanted to work with that were here, because we have a huge, informatics department, and the anthropology department has my advisor, Tom Bailstroff, and Victoria Bernal, and other individuals who do digital / gaming work, was the fact that NYU and Notre Dame weren't really offering as many like family housing options or programs that were as accessible in a case. So if it came down to having to survive with my family, UCI was one of the better ones to do. Notre Dame was pretty good as well, but there are some aspects in that to consider. Also Indiana, and it's also a hyper religious place, but that's fine. What other things there? Nope, I think that's about it. If there's something I missed, let me know.
No, I think you answered it perfectly. I think that's also one of the reasons that students here should consider too, is that when they're choosing a graduate school program, is thinking about the location and the living expenses and the options that are given to your situation as a student. So like say, Akil, you were looking for a campus that was providing housing for families. And obviously Notre Dame and NYU didn't really meet the expectations, but UCI did. So that's also another thing that students can know about weighing their options when choosing something or a program, is that knowing that your PhD is going to be 5 to 7 years of your life. So you want to be somewhere where you'll be supported and comforted. And it sounds that UCI is doing that for you. And I'm very excited to hear that. And thank you for sharing.
Of course, thank you.
And Anaya, if you want to ask your question, and the students be welcome to ask in the chat.
Okay.
Alyssa, we could go with the person who actually asked right now if you want to wait.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So there was an anonymous attendee, says, "Hi, Akil. After graduating from undergrad, how clear of an idea did you have of your areas of interest? For undergrads who have a general but not a very specific idea of what they want to do you have any advice for how to discover this?"
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to go about that. For me personally, I decided I wanted to be happy. I knew that I wanted to go to grad school for something, at the point, and I wasn't really sure what. There was a point where I was playing around with the idea of going to grad school to study mythology, because I'm a big, Greek and Egyptian myth buff in many cases. So I was like, I can make a career and living out of this, and that would make me happy. But I realized what I really had passion for was video games. And I remember there was a day leaving undergrad, and I was thinking about all the ways that I could use an anthropology degree, because it is one of the degrees that you need a little bit more creativity to make use of, even though many companies are finding or basically calling for that now. But I remember thinking about it like really deeply, and like getting on the train going back to work, and I was like, I hate my job, I hate what I I hate, I'm so tired, I'm tired of going to school and doing all this other stuff. All I really want to do is play video games, right? And I grew up with video games. I'm a child of the internet and all these other things. But I just put two and two together, and I was like, what is the way that I can use anthropology to study video games as moving forward? And I discovered that there was a way to really apply it to not only learn more about myself, but to add something to the community, to discover all these new things, and be able to literally play video games and research it, and be able to impact the space of video games. So that's what it was for me. And I my recommendation is, like, what are you really passionate about? Because the good thing about grad school is just you have the opportunity to make your own project, right? You have advisors to help you, but you can study anything that you want, like literally anything. You find the program, you find what it's about, you find what you're passionate about, and you can develop a project around your passions, and spend 5, well, more like 2, depending on how long your research intervals are, just researching that, right? So and if it's something, anthropology can study it, sociology can study it. There's so many other things that you can look at to find out, or so many navigations that you can. So find out what you're really passionate about, find out what you love, and then just go down the list of disciplines that really fit you. If you enjoyed what you did in your undergrad and you want more of that, there's always a way to develop it as well, because again, grad school is all about your own sort of you define your own work, right? It's not just taking courses that other people make up. You make up whatever you want. You find a way that you can study it and make it happen. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's also really important, that's why we have a whole presentation about this, is making sure you know what you want in life and what makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, this is a huge part of your life, is going to grad school, but also being in a career that you actually enjoy, and being able to be surrounded by the people that you want to be surrounded by, and you want to be able to have good mental health as well as physical. So I believe Naya left on accident, so she should be joining us soon. But one of the other questions, if I may ask, is what advice do you have on students who may be considering a gap year and defining those interests a lot more before pursuing graduate school? Or if you were a person who did take a gap year, can you also talk about that experience?
So yeah, I did actually end up taking a gap year, not out of choice, but because the way my school sort of set up after having my daughter, I had to take a little extra time. So I was off of the fall application interval. So I had missed that, had to wait the year. I worked a couple of weird medical administration jobs around the time, which I have so much trauma from, but I'll talk to my therapist. But so I think there's a lot of benefit to taking a gap year in a lot of cases. It does allow you, it gives you a break from the sort of academic setting. You get to see the world a little bit, whether or not you use it to work, whether or not you use it to just relax. There's literally no shame in taking a gap year just to sleep on your couch or your bed for 3 months or whatever else you want to do. But it also means that you are able to prepare your application packages without having to also worry about school on the same hand, because it took me a while to get my packages together, especially if you're not accustomed or didn't have to do like a graduating thesis or any sort of like long project. The application processes for grad school can seem a little daunting at first, because I remember I had to write like what was like close to 20 or 10 to 20 pages for UCI, and like that was a whole new paper I had to write. That was a whole bunch of research that I had to do. I had to, obviously write this personal statement. You put yourself under all this stress, and that's something that's a lot easier to deal with when you don't have to show up for your 8 a.m. class. The other thing is that gap years, it's time, right? If you want to be where you want to be as fast as possible, which, rushing isn't always the best case, but that's a whole year that you could be in grad school. That's a whole year that you could be doing stuff. And then if you apply while in school and you don't, get the school that you want, or you find the place and you want to go at it again, that means that you now have stuff to work with when you apply immediately during the school year program. There's a lot to there's a lot of stuff to weigh in that case, and the gap year may just really solidify whether or not you do or do not want to go to school. In that case, trust me, some of the terrible jobs that I've had really reinforced me going to grad school. It was like, I want to talk about a book, but nobody here reads, and everybody voted for people that I'm not a big fan of, or just flat out racist. And I'm just like, you know what, if I'm gonna deal with all of this, at least enjoy what I'm doing. I'd rather be paid, even if it's not as much as I would like it to be, to educate myself, than sit there in a terrible position at a terrible job and feel awful, which, therapist. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking about, potentially having the option for students to take that gap year, whether it was optional or whether it was something they have to do. It's also good to talk about maybe taking some time for you to define your interests when you're not bombarded with classes or bombarded with homework that you have to finish by midnight. It's also a great way for you to kind of sit down and actually ask yourself and self-reflect if this is something you really want to do. And I really like that you talked about your experience, Akil, about being in jobs you don't really like and being surrounded by certain people that may not be as professional as they should. Is a good eye-opening experience to kind of tell yourself, maybe I should pursue that graduate degree because I want to do more for myself and I want to make a change in the world. So thank you for sharing that. And Naya's back in the room. Unless students do have questions, please drop it in the chat. We are willing to answer any questions that you guys have. If there's no questions coming in, we'll allow Naya to ask her questions too.
I don't see any. Now, are you there?
Yeah, I know, just waiting to see. You kind of were touching on it right before I disconnected with the question that was asked anonymously in the chat. But I wanted to know, like, if you could elaborate a bit more about like your decision to go with anthropology over something like informatics or computer science and engineering, the more like traditional gaming areas for academia,
Yeah.
because like anthropology itself, and me, I'm doing the Black Gaming Society and all this stuff. I'm looking at master's programs in business, but
Yeah.
there's not really any asterisks to any of these programs that are like, hey, if you want to do a business, do a gaming business, or talk about Black experiences in Final Fantasy, like, come study this. So, like, can you maybe describe a bit more about that process of, like, I guess maybe taking a risk to, joining this department or this realm of academia, and like, yeah, I think potentially that could maybe help other students. Like, you don't have to think so in the box with certain majors or topics, but like you could apply your. I'll just let you take it from me. Hope it's making sense.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot there. So, I mean, for me, like I said, anthropology methodologically was the thing that was going to let me continue to play video games and to interact with people and speak to people on a personal level, right? Because a lot of the research that you do is going to be interpersonal research in anthropology, and that sort of researching narrowly but thinking broadly sort of perspective, right? So you choose a community, you as yourself as a research sort of instrument, whether or not it's through interviews or participant observation or these other things, is limited to like what you can accomplish, right? You can have research teams and bigger projects and stuff like that, and these are areas that I will go into later. But when you're doing your dissertation fieldwork, you're more or less going to have the more traditional anthropological, experience of, you go to a place, you talk to as many people as you can, you interact, you do all the background information, you pay attention to the politics, to the sort of social interactions that are going on, and then you write this huge analytical document on it, both analyzing what it is you more or less have. Prediction is a bad word for anthropology, but from the project that you went in to, and then what it is you're actually seeing, right? Because you will develop a project, and then when you go to the field, that may fall apart. Everything that you thought would happen may actually never happen, and may be completely different. And now you must then contend with the fact that you've read all this theory that doesn't necessarily hold up in field, and you have to make that work. And also that explaining that why it doesn't work is also a wonderful point, and can really obviously broaden the field. But anthropology for me was in some ways the easier choice, because I did anthro in undergrad. I took all these sort of social science courses, and I was originally a bio major, but I hated lab work. So there's a lot of stuff to. Sorry, there's a lot of things to consider there, and anthro just worked for me personally. But something that I think is also helpful is to sort of think like a grad student in that case, because once you get to grad school, the focus on department starts to matter a little bit less. It's very important for you to choose when you're going into grad school, because these are the people that are going to be your sort of team, more or less, right? Like these are the people who are going to be supporting you, or you're going to be working under, and finding a group of people who can support you properly is going to be everything for you in your success of grad school. Finding somebody who's the best in the field may not be the best fit for you if you don't get along, or if they don't do what you have. I've had great experiences working with like archaeologists, and I don't do anything with archaeology, right? But a good advisor should be able to speak to your interests, even if it is not your focus, right? And it's recognizing and choosing that sort of, because you'll have to choose your committee and your main advisor, stuff like that, that will help you out more. But anthropology is naturally interdisciplinary, but I work very interdisciplinary anyway. I hang out at the informatics department. I hang out in the anthro department. I speak to departments over in other universities. I do work in the University of Kentucky, right? You're going to, when you get to grad school, the possibilities sort of widen. You're no longer beholden to just sitting in your university, and nobody expects you to, because you're making a career for yourself. So even if you say choose anthropology and you get into a department that has nothing to do with what you want to study, you can make your own path and find an advisor somewhere else. One of my advisors is at the University of Kentucky. I have Tom here, I have Damien here, and then I have Kishona Gray over in UKY. And it's great that you don't have to limit yourself anymore. So just think of it as like your department will be your home base, but you are free to explore and do whatever you have. And of course, every department has their own different politics. Some may be more willing or less willing to do that. But yeah, if you go to a business MBA or whatever else, you'll be fine, right? Because your program isn't supposed to make the work for you. They are your toolkit. They're teaching you the methods that you're going to use, and then it is your job to apply those methods to whatever focus or practice that you want. So if you go to an MBA and you learn all the businessy stuff, right, you can develop a gaming project around business, and it's huge because esports are a thing. Business, every industry in game is exploding, and you have all the opportunities there. So it doesn't matter what department you go to. It depends on how you craft your work after. Although depends on how you like it, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's a really good answer to kind of tie into like the one of the last questions we'll have for today's presentation is that Justice did ask about the letters of recommendation. How do you build those connections? And did you ask only your anthro professors only?
Oh, that one's that you got to kind of play by ear. So I've actually never told this story in live or whatever else, but like I'm not a crazy people person. I've come out my shell a bit more in many cases, but asking for letters of rec was very difficult because, again, I was working all the time, right? I didn't have any sort of opportunities to build connections or anything else like that. I wasn't in, Anthro Club. I wasn't in, any of the other like Ford institutions or whatever else little fancy programs that people were doing in their programs. So it was basically like, hey, I've taken a class with you once 3 years ago. Would you mind writing me a letter of recommendation? And that can go really sour in a lot of cases. One professor essentially told me that I may not be a good fit for grad school because I have children and I don't have any time and all these other things like that. And it was obviously a really shitty thing to hear because it was like, hey, maybe that's not for you. And I was like, nah, I don't know. I kind of think it is. Plus, I'm poor, so ain't much other options anyway. Education is all you got at that point. But yeah, so for me, I very much played it by ear. A lot of the people I asked, thankfully, because I did do a research program, I had one professor that was really looking out for me and helped me decide what schools were to go to and whatnot, because I had no idea what was going on. I had never even heard of UCI. I was like, why the hell would I move across the country to work in his cases? But then I looked at UCI and I was like, all right, this is kind of dope. But you if you can take a research project or work with a professor to just get your feet in research to see if you like it, I do highly recommend that, because even if it's just a month or a couple of weeks or whatever else, that's somebody that you can use as a letter of rec. It helps improve your personal statement. There's other things to discuss, and you can figure out if you don't like it. And then the rest I just played by ear. I had a Black professor who taught at NYU and at City College on his time on like his weekends, and he was really just down for the community. He was a fantastic individual doing social work, and working between prison abolition. And I was like, hey, I need a letter of rec, and he was like, I got you, no problem. And then the third individual was somebody I had known from previous just undergrad stuff, and they thankfully wrote for me, no problem. But if you do have the connections, that's great, but really get of individuals who will speak to your best traits. If there's somebody that seems like they sort of don't like you, I wouldn't recommend it, even if you got like a AA or an A+++, whatever in their class, right? Because you do want people to speak more than just your academic ability, but also how you are as a person. Because a lot of these, like, you're going to grad school, the professors expect to more or less mold you in many cases. They very much, they don't like, they want to know that you have ideas and things like that. But when you write your personal statement and your research topic or anything else, you're not writing a done project. You're going to spend years building it and modifying it. So they do want the opportunity to help you grow. And if you already sound like you know everything, it comes off very poorly to them. And it also means like, why are you coming then? If you know everything, what's the point? So it's not a big deal if you don't know, and asking them and writing your stuff with open questions and being like, hey, I don't know, but this is why I'm coming to your program, is fantastic. And if you can have letters of rec people write to your inquisitive nature and the ability to grow and learn, that can often be better than having the biggest GPA or all these other things. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Akil, for answering all the questions for the students here, and also for me and Naya. We're also interested in pursuing graduate school, and I really appreciate you coming out today and speaking about your experiences, because a lot of us may not have a lot of exposure to graduate students. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to speak with us, especially with the strike going on campus. And hopefully, it passes through and they're able to provide you more than they should have previously. But I really appreciate you coming here. And if you don't mind, we're going to share your contact information with the students who were here today at the presentation, or maybe for the students who weren't able to show up, they'll be able to have the presentation and also your contact, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine. It's
awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Akil. So we're going to move on. I know we're a little bit over time, but we like to say thank you for the students who have showed up, and also Akil for coming. We do have Instagram, which is SSARC, and then our YouTube UCI SSARC, and then Facebook with facebook.com SSARC, and then our website sarc.uci.edu, and our phone number is 949-824-8322. Feel free to schedule a consultation to speak with any of our peer consultants or graduate school research team or the career internship team. Or if you're just looking for a place to quietly study, or just heat up your food, feel free to stop by. We are looking at social behavioral getaway building. If you'd like to add anything, Naya, feel free to do so.
No, but make a consultation. We're here to help you.
Yes, we are definitely here to help you. So don't be afraid to schedule consultation, and don't be afraid to also reach out to Akil. He's open to talking with anybody who's interested in pursuing graduate school. And I thank you everyone for showing up. And I hope that this presentation was helpful for you to be interested in pursuing graduate school. And I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Woo.
You guys have a good one. I'm gonna go back to work now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Akil, for your time.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.